Four Missouri Tigers players will take their talents to Indianapolis, looking to prove themselves to NFL scouts and general managers this week at the NFL Scouting Combine. This is All Things Mizzou podcast presented by Missouri Tigers on SI. Joey Van Zummeren, joined by Michael Stamps as we look ahead to this week. Both me and Michael will be in Indy for the Scouting Combine, bringing you a ton of content from this week. But before we head there, wanted to talk about these four players, what they have to prove this week, and where they're currently standing with draft stock. Michael, just in general, kind of cast a wide net here. Is there anything in particular you're looking for in any specific Missouri player this weekend?
I guess not super specific. I think a lot of people want to see Luther Burden do drills and things like that. Obviously, we haven't seen much, if not any, compared to the other guys. I think obviously the health status of Theo Weiss is going to be important, and just where he stands if he's going to participate. In general, I don't think anybody knows besides maybe him. So that'll be important. And then it's interesting with Brady as well, in kind of a, I guess, unique, if you want to call it, quarterback class where he fits. You look at Cam Ward as the consensus number one guy, you would think, but I think it gets pretty cloudy and there's rumors flying around and you don't really know who fits where. Is, Cam Ward really the number one guy? Obviously, there people blow smoke and all that. That really starts like right now, leading up to the draft with rumors, and this team likes this person, and the scouts think this person is going to make a jump. So I guess it's interesting to see where Brady really stands amongst all those guys, because again, I think it's kind of hard to tell right now. I don't think he's hurt himself or really boosted himself much with anything he's done. Done anything he did at the Shrine Bowl. Yeah, he wasn't bad by any means, but he definitely wasn't insane standout. He made some good plays, but at the game at least. So I think it's kind of hard to maybe pick out where he stands right now. So that'll kind of be a good evaluation there. But other than that, I think people want to see Luther Burden play some football, and that's always a pleasant sight to see. So I mean, other than that, not anything super specific. I guess I'd put the health of Theo Weiss at the top of my list because that's really the biggest question mark we have right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. With Brady, I agree with you. It's hard to say kind of exactly what tier he fits in. Obviously, he's not in with that Cam Ward, Shadir Sanders group. I'd say even below, even Jackson Dart is a fringe first round pick there. But then it gets difficult to tell outside of that. Obviously, I don't think anybody is going to say that Brady Cook's going to be a day 2 pick either. But yeah, we'll see where kind of Brady fits in that group tier wise. And before we get into that, though, let's start with offensive lineman Armand Mimbu, who seems like he's going to be the Missouri player first off the board in this draft class, has obviously really been getting some attention since the college football season ended, and I think is going to be one of the top players at this year's Combine. As far as storylines go, a lot to follow there. He didn't get to participate at the Senior Bowl. Really unfortunate situation for him. He comes down with stomach bug, some sort of illness on like the first or second day, right after flying down to Mobile for the Senior Bowl, and has to skip out on all the practices. I doubt he even got a chance to meet with any teams there. So kind of building the mystery of Armand Mimbu here. And the big question for him, like the stuff that's going to, there's sometimes where it feels like prospects don't have anything to prove at the Combine. They don't have anything to gain or lose. But Armand, I wouldn't say he has anything to gain or lose really, but there's certainly stuff to be learned about where he projects in the NFL. I think no matter what, he's, at least on the outside, it seems like he solidified himself as a top 15, maybe top 20 pick. But certainly where is going to play guard or tackle. So I don't believe we got any measurements, or shoot, I should check this. I don't think he measured in at the Senior Bowl.
I don't believe so either, but I feel like I would have remembered that if he did.
Yeah, let me. Oh no, he did.
Oh, okay.
Let me see if there's.
He's actually, yeah, he's the only one who did. I found a on SI article about it.
Oh, okay.
A CFBHQ
Okay.
of that.
So Armand at the Senior Bowl measured in at 6'3", 3'4", 332 pounds. Let's see, 9 foot five, or not 9 foot hands, 9 and 5/8 hands, 33 and 1/8 arms, and then 6'9" wingspan. So we'll see once we get the more official measurements at the combine. The combine is also good because we get to kind of place it in the context of the rest of the class, see exactly what the rest of those arbitrary numbers mean. Height and his length are definitely something to watch as far as where he projects in either guard or tackle. And then we'll also see, I mean, on the outside, I think it's going to be hard to tell, but I'm sure general managers, scouting departments have drills where they're looking at specific skills of, okay, we want to see this out of it, somebody with tackle ability, and then we want to see that. We want to see them excel in this drill if they're going to be a guard and vice versa. So we'll see what the talk on him becomes after the combine. But I think after this, there's going to be a pretty accepted notion of where he slides in at the NFL. Either way, I think even if he doesn't have the ideal size, there's going to be teams that value the versatility, even though he only started at right tackle for Missouri. He has the size and athleticism to play on the inside. So going to be interesting to watch there. And obviously could be team dependent. We could come out of the combine, everybody saying he's going to play one position, team drafts him, and it's opposite depending on what they need. So that's anything to add on Armand, Michael?
Well, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Joey. I'd like to think he's one of the younger players in this draft. He's
Yeah,
20.
I mean he's
Yeah,
20.
if not,
Yeah,
yeah, he's 20. If not the youngest, I don't want to say that, but he's got to be one of the youngest. So I think that holds some weight there. You made a good point about knowing where knowing where he's going to slide in after the combine. I don't think it's completely clear yet, and I think there are going to be teams, like you said, who are looking for different things. Some teams may view him as a tackle right now. Some teams may view him as a guard. Obviously, those teams are going to be probably looking at different things or maybe ready to make that switch about how they value him. Regardless, you have to think he's one of uh, the first offensive linemen off the board. Just looking down, uh, looking down the draft board or looking down the draft order. The first team who really jumps out to me is needing a tackle or guard is the Giants at number 3. I don't think he's going to go there, but I guess uh, the NFL draft is pretty unpredictable. I'd like to think that,
especially with the Giants, they always have
yeah,
something
yeah,
up their sleeve.
yeah. I don't want to bank on anything there, but in general, I feel like Will Campbell from LSU is probably the consensus top offensive lineman. Um, so I don't want to make any predictions right now, but there are definitely spots in the top 15 where it looks like he could get picked up. So it needs to have a good combine still just to kind of solidify that. I don't think, like you said, I don't think he's going to jump up significantly or slide significantly. I always have to remind myself, um, even from just the outside viewing process, when the combine comes around or when the draft comes around, that the NFL draft is just so beyond unpredictable. And what our opinions and thoughts about these guys are probably completely different than some of these scouting departments and general managers, as we've seen with some recent top 10 picks in the last couple years. So we could say all this stuff and miss the mark, but I think we both feel pretty solid about Armand Membo, and I'd like to think that others do too. That he's shown enough over the last couple months to solidify where he is now.
Right. Going back to something you mentioned earlier in that answer, I mean, Armand, yeah, his 21st birthday is not until March 27th of this year. So he can celebrate getting drafted with having, being 1 month into being able to actually celebrate with drinks. So good for Armand there. But yeah, 20 years old. And also the other thing is just the lack of mileage, really, especially with offensive linemen. I mean, it's not as detrimental as it is to running backs, but to only be 20 years old, only started 30 games, it's pretty good for your health. No major injuries that I am aware of for Armand that teams should be wary of either. So he's got that working in his favor for sure. Moving on to Brady Cook, we talked a little bit about him at the top here. And we talked about him in the Shrine Bowl too, of just really, I think for me, I think the main thing he needs to show is consistency with everything he does. And I think there's going to be drills that suit what Brady does really well, being able to roll out. So we'll see how he ends up performing here. He's not like mobility is a part of his game. I wouldn't expect him to go lights blazing on the 40-yard dash, though. He's not necessarily a speedster as a runner, though. Might do better in kind of some of the more short agility drills there. Other than that, difficult to predict. But again, just being able to show off that consistency, I think he has a draft prospect, as we kind of hit on, is an interesting one to look at. He reminds me a lot of Max Duggan out of TCU a few years ago, not because they're similar players, although they are in some regards, but just because of their main thing. I think the main thing they're going to have at the top of whatever they're trying to sell to teams, what the main reason you draft them, I would think, is because of Brady's toughness. He obviously has plenty of that going in his direction. Obviously has plenty of things as a leader, and Eli Jinkowitz thinks that Brady Cook is going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL one day. So we'll see. I guess this would be the first big step in that. Michael, thoughts on what Brady can show?
Yeah, I don't have much more to add. I mean, obviously he's tough and has maybe some of the best leadership traits I would imagine in some of these prospects. I'm not, going to speculate or throw shade at any other quarterback prospect, but obviously there seem to be general consensus concerns about guys more towards the top of this quarterback class. So a guy like Brady might be refreshing to some teams when he's, assuming he's around later in the draft, which seems to be the case. Other than that, it's hard to evaluate. I have no idea what teams think of him, but he's tough. He's a great leader, and he wins. Obviously, he didn't win the first couple seasons, but the last 2 seasons he's been nothing but a winner, and for the most part has contributed to that winning on offense and has made winning plays and clutch plays and tough plays. So that will speak for itself. You made a good point. He excels in the short game. Making short connections with his receivers, and he's a good play extender as well. I'd like to think so. He has that going for him. Obviously, he doesn't have the most insane projectable arm talent or accuracy. Those things can improve, but right now he doesn't necessarily have that same level as other guys. So I'm sure that'll be a knock against him. But I mean, he has something going for him. Like we said, as a winner, I would like to think not many, if any, quarterbacks in this class went to the hospital, came back later in the fourth quarter. So he has that going for him as well. And I make the joke, but I do think that does mean something. That's very unusual, and it says a lot about him. So I think he has that going for him.
Right. He has 3 years of starting experience behind him, too, which isn't as rare of a commodity as it was a few years ago. But 3 years of starting experience behind him. And yeah, with those later round quarterback picks, you're kind of just taking a chance. They're rotated so quickly. But he does at least, I think maybe some teams view him as an exciting project, as starting off bottom of the depth chart, seeing what they can get out of a guy that has all the character in the world, has some raw skills that you can build on. And I think we've seen in the past decade some of the notions that a lot of people have had that have been the common idea of the projection of quarterbacks has kind of been changed mostly by Josh Allen. I think has played a big part on that, specifically with accuracy. So we'll see. We'll see what Brady's draft stock turns into. On to the wide receivers here. I think, Michael, you're completely right on people wanting to see Luther Burden go out there. Even in individual drills, I think he's going to be exciting and fun to watch. And Armand's going to be one of the top storylines, but I think Luther is going to be just like, as far as getting highlights from the combine, I think Luther Burden is going to have some of those. So what are your thoughts on Luther in this week in Indy?
I mean, yeah, like I said, and I'm probably in agreement with a lot of people. I think we just want to see him. He's the only one that we haven't really seen or heard much of since the end of the season, and obviously he opted out of the Music City Bowl. So you would make the assumption that he's been doing something to fill that time. But obviously we haven't seen much of it. But yeah, he's a highlight guy. Obviously, I hesitate to say he had a disappointing season. Statistically, yes, but when he was involved in the offense and when he was getting the ball, for the most part, he was taking advantage of it, and he really received attention, defensive attention from his opponents that I don't think he'd ever seen before. And you look back on it, and that might be a key contributor as to why he wasn't as productive as he was the season beforehand. He is also young. He's a true junior, and I don't know how old he is, but he's also on the younger side, which uh, does make a difference. I think, unfortunately, his lack of statistical production this season kind of has put a damper on that draft stock a little bit, but he's a highlight guy and he does incredible things with the ball in his hands. The NFL Combine seems like the absolute perfect time and avenue for him to remind people why he was getting that top 5, top 10 pick draft buzz in the preseason and last season. So um, I hesitate to say he has the most to prove out of the four, because I think that's kind of a bold statement, but he really, really, really could help his draft stock, um, with a good combine. And I don't think he has much room to drop because he has years of production and explosiveness and being able to do things that other receivers, just can't do. And you obviously stack him up against Teteroa McMillan from Arizona, um, but you can't really compare the two because they're like polar opposite receiver prospects. But obviously, he had a very productive season with Arizona, and despite them not being amazing, uh, his numbers were off the charts, and Luther's weren't. So you look at the discrepancy there. Probably attribute that to the difference in draft stock, because right now McMillan widely regarded as receiver one and potential top 10 pick. Burden, receiver two, sometimes even receiver three, um, depending on some more outlandish opinions. But it's not the heaviest receiver draft class as far as first round talents go. You have Egbuka from Ohio State, Golden and Bond from Texas, and maybe I'm missing others, but it doesn't really seem like there are many who could jump Luther and definitely not McMillan. So I'm not going to say he has the most to prove, but the combine seems like a place where a receiver of his skill set could really shine. And I think if he does that, we're going to see a significant boost in his draft stock.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I don't think he has a lot of room to drop. I think he has a solid floor as of right now, unless he has. I mean, there have been some people who have had just awful combines in the past with how they handle everything, but I think Luther is not going to have one of those. And then I agree with you. I think, I mean, it's hard to say, just because I feel like a lot of what we picture his stock at now is just kind of off of a lot of media opinions. And this is such an interesting thing about draft season where it's really just a few people that are kind of setting the common opinions. There's a lot of dogma out there. Um, but I would agree with where he's kind of slated in now of late teens. That feels right. Um, but I also I agree with you. I feel like he could work himself into top 10 conversation again over these next 2 months with the combine and then the pro day as well. Um, so we'll see there. I mean, I would like to think that the NFL general managers are competent enough. The people running NFL teams are competent enough to not just look at the stat sheet and say, wow, he must have really took a step down in 2024. But hey, then again, I mean, there's been Woody Johnson, the Jets owner, with oh man, and there's a lot of things going wrong with the Jets, but apparently relied on Madden ratings. So who knows how these NFL teams are evaluating Luther Burden?
Yeah, and I think one thing that's interesting is I don't know how many receiver needy teams there are, um, in the area where Luther is generally projected to go. Um, I don't know how much Luther projects as like a main receiver one guy. He
Right.
might be more of a just a complimentary. Complimentary is maybe disrespectful because he could be a 1,000 yard receiver in the NFL, but maybe just not a receiver one. So I think that's more of what you're looking at, and it's going to be interesting to see who takes him when, because I don't know if just with the skill set, it's not a knock against him, but just the way he plays, I don't know if he could, if he projects as a receiver one. So I think that's kind of what you're looking at for Luther. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
No, yeah, I agree with you there. And complimentary in yeah, it's difficult because I don't know. Even though obviously he's had multiple clutch receptions and big situations for Mizzou, like obviously when you're looking at wide receiver one, you're looking at in my mind, I'm thinking third down. Who are you going to? Who is going to be able to make any catch for you? And that's not necessarily Luther's MO. I know he's gotten a lot of comparison to Debo Samuel of the 49ers, at least when before Debo kind of fell off this past year. But even Debo, I mean, it's 6 foot 215. Luther is 5'11", 208 unofficially. So maybe, I mean, maybe that size, where he measures in at, kind of plays a big role in it too. And we'll see, especially with the weight, kind of his body archetype there. Um, we'll see on that. But yeah, he's definitely both him and Armand. Really, all 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 three of these source guys we've talked about, all interesting to kind of track what ends up being the conversation around them in these next 2 months here. And then rounding it out with Theo Weiss Jr., Michael, like you said, has that hand injury that he suffered in the Music City Bowl. Wasn't able to participate in the Shrine Bowl, and we'll see this opportunity in the combine. Obviously, it's so great for him, even if he can't participate, to be able to get an invite to talk to these NFL teams, get that medical examination, and feels again pretty solidly as a day 3 pick right now. He's on the older side. But what are your kind of thoughts if he can participate, assuming that, on where Theo is sitting as a draft prospect now?
well, I mean, obviously he stepped up big for Missouri this year. Luther Burden, like I mentioned, got just attracted a ton of attention, and not that that's not like Theo was just wide open, waiting to get the ball. He obviously was a very big playmaker, but different skill set. Uh, More of a middle of the field route guy, and you can hit him deep as well. So he had a great year. The health is huge, and the age is huge. He's 23 years old. He's was in college for quite a while. So that doesn't help. I don't. I'm not the type of guy who thinks that the age, as far as prospect, a prospect wise goes, makes the biggest difference. Maybe for a receiver, it's a little different because you want them for as long as you can have them. Obviously, Theo doesn't project as like a superstar, but there's no reason he can't contribute on an NFL team. He seems like the type of guy, toughness wise, and again, maybe a little bit cliche, but we said with Brady, but um, toughness, leadership, attitude, mentality, seems like a guy who can find his way onto an NFL roster, regardless of, obviously if he's drafted, but if he's not drafted, seems like the type of guy who can, get his way through training camp and earn himself some sort of contract. So I think I think he needs to play. You cross your fingers that he is healthy and ready to go. Seems like the guy out of these four who probably has the most approved. That's why I didn't say it for Luther. Seems like he probably has the most approved, just because um, since the end of the season he hasn't done anything, which is not a knock against him. Obviously, he's been injured, but just having something to show for this pre-draft process, I think, is going to be huge, measurement wise and drill wise and things like that. So it's kind of like I mentioned with Luther, but different circumstance. I think people just want to see him play and want to see him healthy. Um, if he's not healthy this week, I I don't want to be too negative about his draft outlook, but that certainly might change things, especially since you mentioned kind of a day 3 guy, but don't no guarantees there. He's not like a for sure day 3 guy. If he's hurt and has a lingering injury, and maybe it's more severe than people realized, or it's just lingering and hasn't gone away yet. Uh, that might be something that can push him into the undrafted territory. So I don't want to speculate or anything like that, but that's possible. So I think just seeing him healthy and able to compete and measure and do drills will do him a lot of favors.
Right. And he measured in at the senior or the Shrine Bowl rather, 6'2", 202 pounds. Missouri's website had him at 6'2", 210. So don't know if that 202, I mean, from 2010 or 210 drop off, if there's anything there, if he's trying to slim down, or just kind of a result of going throughout the season. So I'm sure they took that measurement in the summer of last year. So yeah, I'd agree with you. Obviously, if he's not able to go, that changes all the conversation that we're having right now. But I agree with you. I think he is maybe not as much as Luther, but still a guy that can make some highlight worthy plays at the combine, can get some more eyes on him just with his contested catchability. Again, there's plenty of opportunities to show that off in the combine. He'll have another opportunity in the pro day, again, depending on his health. But yeah, I can see him being a guy that no matter drafted or signed as undrafted free agent later on, even then in training camp in the preseason, again, presuming that he's fully recovered from that hand injury eventually, can make some standout plays where some teams want to keep him around on the practice squad or roster, to see if they can turn that contested catch specialty into anything else. He has some special teams ability too. So excited to see all four of these Missouri prospects in action this week in the combine. Again, me and Michael will have coverage all week for you in Indy, and we hope you tune into that.